Well, welcome everyone. So glad you could be here today and learning along with all of us. The session is being recorded at the moment, and we'll clip it afterwards to this point of greetings to all. If you choose to, on your Zoom bit there where your name is, you could choose to add your church affiliation or your presbytery affiliation, just as an idea of the scope of who we're talking with, not a necessity. Also, since it's being videoed, or excuse me, recorded, you may choose to stop your video if you'd like to do that. The Zoom recording will be loaded to the Presbytery website within a couple of weeks, as well as all the presentation materials. So the PowerPoint and such will also be available there as a reference. So the title of this class is, just in case you're in the wrong one, is Property Guys from Around the Presbytery. Our presenters are Brian Schaefer, who'll be joining us, Don Fairman and David McDowell. And if this isn't the right workshop that you expected to be part of, then you can go back to your email that went out with all of the listing of courses and select that one to get into the what you'd prefer to be, what you expected to be into um, for this session too. Um, if you would please keep your account muted unless you're talking, just so we can hear clearly as we go through the Zoom. And also, subsequent to today, you'll be receiving a survey that we're going to ask for your thoughts. Please let us know your thoughts on the event and any parts that you participated in, as well as ideas for future classes. That's helpful for planning for next year. And here's a plug for see, I'd like to also introduce Janet Flynn, and I'm Nancy Simpson. We're on the Presbytery of Genesee Valley's Tools and Training group, and is a plug for the Tools and Training group who sets up Congregational Learning Day, puts this all together each year. If you are interested in joining and helping, please let Mindy Schaefer or Janet Flynn know. Mindy Schaefer's contact information is on the Presbytery website, and Janet's contact information is in the survey that you'll be getting. Sorry about that, Janet. So yeah, thanks for being here. And just a quick format, what we'll be doing, and then intros of the speakers. We'll have Don and Dave kind of go through a portion of what they've accomplished and are working on. And then Brian Schaefer will as well talk about some additional bits that he's working on. And then lots of time for discussion, Q&A, dialogue, best practices discussions, all those kinds of things that will be gearing up in your brain if you don't already have them in mind. So on to our introductions. For Brian Schaefer, Brian is a 27-year employee at St. John Fisher as the lead HVAC/R tech for heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and refrigeration. His responsibilities include preventive maintenance, building management, project management, new construction, renovation projects, and creating 5 to 10-year capital plans regarding building, mechanical upgrades, as well as mechanical repairs on commercial boilers and cooling systems. Brian has been involved with the Presbyterian Church since 1987, joining the Caledonia First Presbyterian Church in 1993 when he moved with his family to Caledonia. Since that time, Brian has been the property committee chairperson or property committee member. And as such, as you can see how busy he is, we're hoping that he can join us in a little bit because he got called into work today. So on to Don and David. Don Fairman started attending the Brick Presbyterian Church, which later merged with Central Church and Downtown United Presbyterian Church in 1971 after returning from a 16-month tour in Vietnam. Thank you for your service. Don has served on session numerous times, as well as chaired several different committees, including stewardship, congregational life, safety team, and the property team. Initially, Don began with audio support, which included live radio broadcast, and now provides AV support for live streaming. His role on the property team and audio live stream has involved hundreds of hours of hands-on support. Don earned his associate degree in electrical engineering from Penn State and his BS from RIT, 8 years while working full-time at Kodak. He retired from Kodak after 34 plus years as a quality/test engineer in the digital side. Don has also served as the volunteer chief operating officer for Water for South Sudan for 8 plus years, again, involving hundreds of hours of hands-on support. Thank you, Don. For David McDowell joined Central Church, one of the predecessors of Downtown United Presbyterian Church, in about 1961, and has been a member of session both at Central Presbyterian Church and the Downtown United Presbyterian Church often since the late 1960s. Don holds a BSc in engineering physics and worked at Kodak, mostly in the Kodak research labs, for 42 years. Post Kodak retirement, Dave was involved in US and international standards in printing and publishing for 16 years. He has been a member of the Downtown United Presbyterian Church Property Committee since before 2016 and the session liaison to the Property Committee for much of that time. His role in the Property Committee has been both hands-on support of various projects and in applying his technical background to help evaluate projects, proposals, and technical issues. So, what a cast we have. And turning this over to Don and Dave. Thank you, and go for it.
Am I shared?
You are.
Okay, welcome everybody. We'll introduce who we are from a church on the first slide here, and you can see that we are downtown Rochester, right by the inner loop, and we have 4 buildings there for a total of 55,000 square feet of space. And you can see that we have, obviously all of our buildings are fairly old, so we're always figuring out how to get them into the 21st century, that kind of thing. One of the other unique things of managing energy is that we are a landlord, if you will, of not-for-profits, 11 of them, and you can see that that's little over 15,000 square feet of space, as well as we obviously lease out space for events, birthday parties, retirements, whatever. So the importance of that, before we go to the next slide, is that we have people in and out of the building on various rooms and stuff all over the time. And so part of that, you're going to hear me talk about setback temperatures and stuff. And so therefore, the fact that it's a dynamically changing usage is kind of the language I would use, that having it computerized ahead of time so we know what space is being used to save energy is a big deal, if you will. So today we're going to be covering what we have done over the last 20 years, if you will, how to get 2 things, how to save money on energy and how to become green and basically reduce our CO2 footprint. And so I'm just going to go quickly across there, upgrade all of our windows, computerized our heating control, basically installed new higher efficiency air conditioning equipment, and changed our heat from, when in our case, we used to be on boilers that we produced the steam ourselves. Now we're on RDH, meaning we buy it. The other thing is, as we go through time and put on new roofs, we insulate the roof with high density foam. And obviously, and I'll just make a plug and I may repeat it, is as climatic warming becomes more and more significant, one of the biggest costs that we get into is not just heating, but air conditioning, because everybody wants, it gets so hot, and it actually costs more to whenever you're at peak demands in the middle of the summer, the rates go up and everything else. So air conditioning is a big deal. And so anyhow, just so as you're replacing the roof, you can only do it whenever you're going to actually make that roof needs to be replaced to justify that investment. So, and we performed a detailed audit, energy audit. We significantly upgraded our lighting in the building, and also, like I said, to become greener and to save energy, we basically went to a solar farm to purchase our electric. One of the how did we choose the path? In other words, of all of these things, how did you pick what you're going to do first? And I think the old cliche is you pick the lowest hanging fruit, meaning the lowest cost thing that you can do that has the longest benefits, that you don't have like a one-time thing. It's you do it now, you save for a long period of time, you don't have maintenance on it or whatever. So you choose those items that's part of your bills that says, all right, where do I get the biggest bang for my buck? And now one of the ways that we did that is such a large complex is that we probably lots of people had all single pane windows. And the big meeting rooms, our two biggest meeting rooms, was obviously a good place to start. Whenever it was practically wall-to-wall windows. So you say, all right, take out all of those old, drafty, cold. So not only are you saving energy, you're significantly increasing the comfort of the use of that space. And one of the things you'll see there in bullet 3, it says, oh, we chose to, whenever they call them mullions, when you put a bunch of windows together and you have a frame in it, that frame in our windows forms a Celtic cross. Now, you say, well, why do I care? Well, whenever you're on the registry for a historic site, one of the things we tried to do is to maintain that aesthetics. And so that's the way the front of our institute building, whenever they had the windows in it, it is in the shape of a Celtic cross. After we got obviously the two biggest rooms that with the most windows in, then we moved obviously to the next rooms, if you will, and just pick the ones that you're most often using most often, and say, all right, just move through the building in that way. And as you can see, the way I wrote the bullets, the last places that we will probably be replacing our windows is in a building that whenever they did it back in the day, they put storm windows on. So even though those are single pane windows, they have storms, which basically is the energy equivalent of having good insulated windows. So that's why it's on the bottom of the list. The next thing we did was back to that point that I was saying about having all of these people in and out of our buildings, meaning tenants, events, all of that. It says huge amount of space. So the answer is we had, like many people have, a setback system. Yeah, it's 6 o'clock. You pick the time in the evening, 9 o'clock, and you put everybody back to 55 degrees because there's nobody in the building. Well, our church actually runs from about 7:30 in the morning to 9:30 every night. We tried to clear the building at 9 o'clock. So we're open a lot of hours. And we have many meetings in the evening from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock. So whenever we computerized, we now, each one of those spaces has what we call zones, and we can control parts of the building all over the place. So everybody that schedules use of our space, if you will, the maintenance guy, after Eileen and our director of operations has their staff meeting on Tuesday, they take all those schedules and the maintenance guy goes into the computer and says, oh, this room or the sanctuary is going to be used for this many hours. And that heat is only provided for that given period of time at that living condition, like, and what temperature, and we say that's around 71 degrees. Then the temperature is lowered back down to save energy to 55. And just to make, I may repeat myself, whenever we did the energy audit, this was a huge piece of our savings, because you're only using the energy when you need it, not just doing the whole plant at one time.
Don,
Yes.
we need to point out how many different zones we have, just to give an indication.
Yeah, we have about 13 different zones in the church.
So that means there are 13 different area or groups of areas that can be controlled independently of each other.
Correct.
So that allows us, if only one group of rooms is being used, to only bring that up to the comfort temperature. And those zones are programmed so that they come up ahead of time, so that when we want it to be 71, that's programmed so it will be 71 by the time the meeting starts.
Right, correct. And that, for example, like you say, it isn't always individual rooms. Sometimes it is. Like, say, Sunday school classes, because that typically is like one use. In other words, you use them all about the same time. So all of the Sunday school classes, all rooms all get turned up or turned down at the same time. And as you can see in my notes there, one of the exceptions is our sanctuary. And because we do have a pipe organ, that large change in temperature does affect its tuning. And our director of operations gets his nose in a twit if we detune his pipe organ. So that stays at 65 degrees at a minimum. And so anyhow, so the other part of this setback is, you see in that second bullet there, our domestic hot water. I have to explain that a little bit. We only have one hot water tank in all of our complex. And you go, and the last that I know, we have 23 bathrooms, just to give you an idea. And so you say, oh, how do I get hot water to all of those faucets without having 20 bath or hot water tanks? And the answer is our hot water system basically has what I call like a fish tank pump. It circulates, there's a pipe that goes all through the complex. And that one hot water tank basically pumps the hot water out of this reserve tank that keeps it at 120 degrees-ish in that tank, and it circulates it through the building so that pipe goes right past the faucets in each of the bathrooms, so you don't have to. Now, the important part of that is how our computer works is if no place is chosen to be occupied, that person, when they put in the schedule, it says, I'm occupied here, blah, blah, blah. And it says, and it's smart enough, if nobody's got any use in the building, then it says, oh, I don't need domestic hot water. So it shuts down that circulating pump, and that shuts down the hot water tank. All of that then goes offline. And the nice thing is none of this is manual, so people don't forget. The answer is it works, and it saves you energy. So now the last bullet addresses that we have never had the resources that basically air condition the big sanctuary. So the next question is, what do you do about that? The answer is, so right now we have sensors in the sanctuary that says, oh, at about 3 o'clock in the morning, we tell, in the summertime now, we tell the computer if it is cooler outside than it is inside the sanctuary, we turn on the big circulating fan and exhaust all the heat. And by the way, that does not care and people are terrible about this, parishioners are terrible about wanting to let the door open when it's hot outside. No, don't do that. We cooled it whenever it was cool outside. Don't let in the 90-degree heat. The room is cooler inside. Anyhow, you get the idea. And that all happens automatically also by looking, because there's an outside thermostat, an inside thermostat, and it just says, oh, if it's cooler, cool the sanctuary. So now we did upgrade our air conditioning. That doesn't surprise you. And that we used to have a 3-ton that took care of a lot of the offices in the main part of the church. And obviously, then we replaced that old 3-ton with a 5-ton. But the other thing was we got rid of, as you can see in my notes, a bunch of window air conditioners. And therefore now it's on a high efficiency 5-ton unit. Again, trying to save energy. I told you that we chose a different heating source. Since about 1983, RG&E decided they were going out of, we're downtown. RG&E used to sell heat or steam to everybody downtown. That's where everybody, Xerox, everybody got their heat was from the steam that they used to generate electric, and what you would call the waste steam was then circulated all through the downtown area. And we used to be on that. And then RG&E says, no, we're getting out of that business about the 80s, and says, oh, and they kept raising the price every year significantly. They were definitely sending signals that you don't want to stay here. And so then we bought boilers and put them in our basement, if you will, and did our own thing. Now, other places like Xerox Tower, for example, they didn't have no room for all these boilers. The building is huge, and that was not ever in their infrastructure. So what happened was all of the bigger outfits downtown Rochester says, we need the steam to continue. So they purchased one of the, over there by the Civic Center, that's a little generating plant that RG&E used to have to do electric. They purchased that just to provide steam, and they formed a cooperative. And so now this cooperative is like, now you're a part of it, right? You're an owner in it. And therefore, what the nice thing is, they buy, and it's a big deal, because the Rochester Heating District goes and says, okay, 2/3 of the natural gas is, by the way, what they use. We're going to purchase that in contracts in the middle of the summer when the prices are very low. And therefore they can buy, millions of cubic feet of natural gas. And then the 1/3 of that they don't know how much you're going to use for the year, right? Based on the weather. So the 1/3 of that they buy whenever the price is, current at the time you need it. So they create lots of savings here by buying in volume. Now, okay, obviously we're running our own boilers. What that means, just to give you an idea, they're 2 million BTU boilers each. That means state law requires you to have a Class 1 boiler license person in your plant to run that, or you can blow the whole place up if you don't know what you're doing. And so the big deal was from us, not only where we have to have this special person in here, the answer is they had only about 10 minutes worth of work that they had to do to keep this going, meaning from their official capacity as a Class 1 boiler license person. So now, needless to say, we hired them as maintenance, meaning cleaning people and stuff like that, and said, oh, when you're not taking care of the boiler, you're helping clean the place. Well, the answer is we couldn't keep a person on this position if we was lucky if we kept them for about a year, because they go, well, you're underutilizing me. I didn't really want to be cleaning. I really wanted to be doing more techie stuff. So it became very obvious to us very quickly. And as you can see, the punchline was that whenever we switched to that Rochester heating district to buy our steam, that means it's piped in. You don't have to have a first-class boiler license. Voila, nice, lowered our bills, made it more convenient, helped our personnel hiring thing, lots of benefits. You can see there's more than one there. So the next thing was, okay, I told you that the sanctuary is only lowered to 65 degrees, biggest building in the complex. So what do you need to do? Our walls on our sanctuary are probably about 2 feet thick of solid concrete. You can't go in conveniently and insulate it. It just can't do that. But the ceiling is prime space to do that. And we had the space. So we went in and basically put 12 to 18 inches of fiberglass in our ceiling of our sanctuary where you could blow it in. That was very easy. And go back to that point again about air conditioning. That means when the sun's out and all that, you're not heating the place in there whenever it's beaten down. And we did the cooling with the computer and the air, adding the insulation then helps keep that cool whenever the sun comes up and so on. So that's obviously one of the reasons we picked that particular investment. The other part, as we're going down through our slides here, is it says, again, climatic warming. How do I keep the place cool? I told you that's because all of the electric peak goes up in the middle of the summer. It's prime time. That taxes all of the electric generator. That's big bucks buying electric in the middle of the summer for air conditioning. So needless to say, all of our flat roofs, I told you, does not have a convenient way to insulate it. Here's where you do it again. Whenever they tear off the old roof, you put down high density foam and then put your new roof down, and you now lower your bills. In our complex, most of our tenants all over the place all have window air conditioners. And so this helps keep those costs down because we basically, whenever we're in their lease, we provide the electric, if you will, as part of their lease. So the more they run their air conditioners, or it costs a landlord. And one of the other things that I'll talk to later here is that one of the other things that whenever we did the energy audit, I'm going to come to, it says you need to have what do I want to call it? The Energy Star air conditioner. You can't just take the one that grandma's wanting to throw away and bring into your office and put in there. You have to have an Energy Star air conditioner because it may cost us more for the electric than it'll cost for that air conditioner.
Don, we ought to point out that if you look at our building or photos of our building, the majority of roof in that facility is flat roofs.
Right.
The sanctuary certainly has tile roofs and they're a typical peaked roof. And that's where we insulated inside the attic. However,
Right.
the rest of the facility is largely flat roofs. And that's where these roof high density foam insulation comes into play.
Thank you, Dave. So now that we've gotten some of that lower hanging fruit done and stuff that we're doing, and like many of those, what I told you, those investments we've done so far are, I won't say permanent, very long investments with very little maintenance, right? When you put the insulation in, it doesn't cost you anything for 30 years, 50 years. You get the idea. You make a one-time investment and you save forever, basically. Now we're getting into saying, all right, how do I do the rest of my energy savings? And one of the big things that you run into is saying, well, I need to do an audit. I need to get my head around what I want to do or can do and for how much. And one of the ways to do that is that RG&E has these programs, and I'm going to be talking about this a fair amount. And they're for small business energy efficiency programs. And it says, oh, therefore, they will help you pay for that audit under these programs. And you can see from my bullets here, that is not cheap. That one audit that we did, that detailed audit, cost $7,000. And guess what? And that was about 2010, by the way, in that ballpark. And the answer is they picked up the whole tab for the audit. Now, there are programs that I'm going to show you shortly where they share expenses, but they picked up that whole. Now, to give you an idea, and I have to wave my hands here a little bit, this audit had a specialist come in for 2 weeks. That in this case, a she was in there 2 weeks. We reviewed everything in that building. I mean, hot water tanks, refrigerators, air conditioning, you name it, heating system, window. This is an audit. This is not somebody come in and they're trying to sell you something and they just wave their hands. I mean, and that at the end of this audit, it says, oh, back to your point again, this is where your money's going. And they also help you say, oh, this is the kind of savings that if you try to do these things that you can get. This is a very good, whenever you get done that low-hanging fruit, whenever you need help to get your head straight about where you save money, these audits are very, very, very helpful. I'm going to just give you some numbers and you can see very quickly the numbers. That tells the story. So under this, the plan, the one of those plans that we did, you can see their contribution was 70% of the cost they picked up. Now, how can you beat that with a stick they just gave you? In this case, they just gave us $17,000. And we invested $7,000, they give us $17,000. Hey, and then after that, that's capital investment. Now, okay, and then you get down through the other numbers and say, oh, my long term down here at the bottom bullet under save, I'm now saving $2,300 a year in electric forever. And obviously that's going to go up as the cost of electric goes up. So that number is going to keep going increase as time goes on. So, and then I'll do a plug for all of the green people. That meant we're now saving 22,000 pounds of CO2 that we're not pumping into the atmosphere also. And then here's more of the details to give you an idea that what kind of details we got into. Like we took all the fluorescent tubes and converted them from the old T12s, and I'm going to get techie here for a second, T12s to T8s, which is 32 watts. And then we switched all of the old-fashioned ballast, magnetic ballast to electronic ballast, which is a lot more efficient. So mind you, whenever they come in, just to do more hand waving here, it isn't like, oh, they set the program out and said, you need to do this. No, whenever we did that contract, they put a team in. That team came in and did the work for us. That's part of those costs. And just commit. Oh, and that was both fixtures, light bulbs, whatever it was. So that says, oh, I can't use that fixture. In other words, I went from one fixture and I was trying to go to another one and say, oh, no, I need to change the fixture, not just the light bulbs, for example. And therefore, that was all in the deal. Now, needless to say, we have in our process, it went in 2 phases. We went from incandescent in time to compact fluorescent. That in this day and age, you would not do that. You would jump directly from incandescent or compact fluorescent directly into LEDs. Because of when we started, the LEDs were not as available then. So we went basically from incandescence to compact fluorescence, the screw-in curly Q bulbs. And now the first one I told you was the long tubes. And we have, I don't know, several thousand in our building, by the way, of the 40-watt fluorescent lights, the tubes up in the ceilings. So that, well, you can see there we replaced 486 lamps and fixture. This was not like 10. And that all ends up. And so clear at the bottom. Where does all this money come from? And it isn't free. I mean, it's free to us as a recipient of these programs. And it's any of you can take out your RG&E and electric bill, and you're going to find this little abbreviation on it called SBC. That SBC stands for, as you see, Systems Benefits Charge. And I bet anybody that's on this call other than me does not know what that meant on their electric bill. Now, that is where they take money out of all of us to put into these programs for small businesses. That's where the money comes. RG&E is not giving away their money. That all comes from all of the rest of us electric people, is they're collecting it. Now, just to give you an idea of what that means without looking your electric bill right now, my electric bill last month, I had paid them $13 this month towards SBC. Now, everybody in Monroe County is paying that. They get lots of money here. Just so my point is, so all of the small businesses in this area, but by the way, it's RG&E and Niagara Mohawk, they're kind of all wrapped together, just so you know that those terms come together here. And it isn't just churches, it is all small business. I can be a dairy farmer and I can do this, is my point. All small businesses can take advantage of these programs. All right. So then we moved into special lighting. And obviously because we put a building next to our sanctuary, and basically we covered 6 of our stained glass, 6 on the lower level, 6 on the, we covered the stained glass windows on the one side of our sanctuary. And you go, that looks like crap. I need to illuminate them because now there's a building beside them. So, and I'm just talking, by the way, my slide, I narrowed down to only 6 on the lower level. The reason I did that, there's nice Tiffany stained glass windows. That is a sin to not have them illuminated correctly. So whenever they put the building on, each one of these, it's kind of like a closet behind each one of these windows. And they had 6 150-watt floodlights blasting up against that window to make it look decent, right? And obviously, whenever I joined the team, I go, well, that is really crazy. All of that electric going into that one window. And we get down to the bottom here at the punchline. And the bad thing is incandescent lamps had 2 major downfalls. They have very short life, and all incandescent lights, basically, as they get old, the filament evaporates and gets on the glass, so they get darker. So now what you're trying to do aesthetically here is to illuminate this window, and you've got 6 lights on it. As they get older and they're incandescent, that guy keeps getting older and older and dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. And then you go, oh, I need to replace that. And you screw in another bulb. Now I have a hot spot because it's brighter than all the rest of the lights in the window. You go, this is just crazy. I can't get there from here. So we went then to halogen lamps. And as you can see, we went from 150 down to 90 watts to get basically the same amount of light on the windows. That was a 30% of savings. But the other big deal was halogens don't get dark with life. So that room, that window stays evenly illuminated when I'm taking out an old bulb and putting in a new bulb. All right, that was the intermediate step. And it says, all right, now we're in the 21st century. We're going to put LEDs in there. Now, mind you, I told you these were floodlights, and we weren't, I can't say that everybody in the past was smart. The answer is we're just blasting light all over the place inside that cloud. I mean, it's like daylight in there, sunlight, whatever. And you go, I don't need all this light flying around all through this closet. All I need is that light on that window. So whenever we got into the LED stuff, it says we're going to go to spots, not floods. Now I'll narrow it down, and with the 6 light, we can make a nice even illumination all over those windows. And so you can see, and whenever we was going through this process, we went from 150 watts for each of those 6 lights down to 17. And we went from 1,900 hours to 25,000 hours. I don't have to replace them very often. I don't have the labor to do that. And believe it or not, it ended up, whenever we did that, it looks the best of all of them. After we made aesthetically, it looks really nice because we're focusing all the light on the window. And anyway, so, and by the way, back to the whole thing, that punchline, other than all that aesthetic stuff, now what am I doing? And the answer is, we are now saving the church $165 a year. I mean, I'm sorry, we went from $1,400 a year to $165 a year. I'm sorry, I said it wrong.
We're saving over $1,200.
Yes, saving $1,200 a year.
By the way, Don, we
Dave.
need to point out here that one of the things that traps we almost found ourselves in when we went to LED lights, not just in the for the windows, but throughout the building, is you've got to be very careful to pick the same color temperature. LEDs come in all kinds of color temperatures, both in the fluorescent tube replacements as well as in light replacements. And we have been very, very careful to maintain the same color temperature in all the lamps we put in. That way you don't have the situation where one is one color temperature and looks real bright, another one is a cooler light and looks different. And so we, to maintain the aesthetics, we've been working very hard to keep all of our lamps at the same color temperature.
And to continue that thought that Dave started there was, that meaning if whether it's warmer, meaning blue, whenever it's talking color temperature, to help elaborate, color temperature means whether it's bluer or redder, if you will, and what meaning warmer. And so, and you don't want to change your system that makes it look weird. And you certainly can't have that color over there and that wall blue and this over here is warmer. You have to think through, like Dave says. And by the way, the other thing is, believe it or not, the whole conversion of what a watt means in illumination. In other words, well, oh, you go, oh, I had a 300 watt incandescent light. What do I need to buy in LED to get the same brightness? And now there's some cheat sheets on the side of the lamps and stuff like that that says, oh, this 24 watts is equivalent to a 60 watt on the old incandescent. Well, whenever you get the bigger ones that we're going to start running into, that becomes a big deal whenever you're doing the whole spatial lighting of, say, a sanctuary. And I hate to say, you do all your homework, and then I would recommend you do a test run, especially for the color and the light, because one of the things that we got into, even in our sanctuary, they go, we don't want so much light that I can't enjoy the sun coming through the stained glass windows. And now it's ultra modern, if you will. Everything's really high brightness. It does make a big difference. And people do notice that. So now David was intimately involved in this piece, and I'll just do a quickie and then I'll let him go do some details here. So the main chandeliers in our sanctuary hang down from the ceiling. They're big iron things with a mica like on the outside that is illuminated. And those lights had originally had these great big 300-watt bulbs in them. And they were obviously eating tons of power, needless to say. And so we replaced all of those with, and Dave, I'm going to let him talk a little bit here in a second. They call them a corn cob light bulb. It's basically looks like a corn cob in a sense.
A soup can.
With all these little LEDs all over the outside of it is how you get these real bright light bulbs when you're trying to get things like 300 watt, not the one like you screw in your light fixture and your end table and stuff. And you say, oh, okay, that bulb gets replaced. Anyhow, I'll let him talk to more of that in a second. I'll just talk about the cost now. So we say, all right, what did we do? So we replaced those chandeliers. Just for those chandeliers, you can see that we have to do two things. Those chandeliers, they're hanging so far up in the air in our sanctuary. I can't get a ladder to get there. All of our chandeliers in our sanctuary are on winches. You go up there with a crank, with a cable, and you let those lights clear down onto the floor, and then you can change the bulbs. And not only am I paying for all this electric, my maintenance guys takes about 45 minutes to change one of those light bulbs. All right, do your math in labor costs, people. This is not a free ride to change those light bulbs. So so whenever you go from like I'm down here in the bottom slide, when you go from a light bulb that's only got 750 watts of life, and I go to a light bulb that has 50,000, which by the way translates into about 23 years, just to give you an idea, that says I went from changing light bulbs every 6 months or something, once every 23. I changed my labor cost a lot, people. This is not peanuts. And that's why I put all these numbers, so you can appreciate it. And I just said 23, it's 26, I guess. That's memory thing, sorry. And so you can see that the price went significantly down on that 26-year period, because you would have to think of it over a long period of time, what this is costing you, right? Not 59,000, but down to 5,000. So, David, talk to the aesthetics a little bit about what we did on these lights.
One of the problems, Don has described this corn cob, or I think of it as a tomato can with a screw plug on the end of it. One of the problems we ran into is those lights will not fit in the old chandeliers normally, but you can get extensions that you can screw in an extension, and then the can will fit and fit into the baffles that are built into the lamp. However, when you do that, the lamp is down a lot lower than the old incandescents used to be. And unlike an incandescent, you don't have light coming out of the top. And so when we first did it, we first put the first one in as a trial, and Don has emphasized you try a couple of times to be sure you got it right. We realized that these beautiful chandeliers with their mica shields around the upper part of the lamp were dark. And you looked at them, and particularly when you had one with the new lamp and one with the old lamp, it just didn't look right. And so we then were faced with, how do you get more light
at the
top of that light? What we were able to do is take a Christmas tree light string with C7 bulbs in it and cut it up into 3 bulb lengths, splice that in, and string that around inside the upper part of the light. You can get LED night lights very inexpensively. They're 7 watts a piece, or 7-watt equivalent, but they're only about 0.7 of a watt. And so each of our chandeliers has a string of those lights inside in the top. And right now, when you look at one of the, you can't look at it now because they're all gone. But when we first tested it, when you looked at one of the lights with the old bulbs flooding up through the top, through the mica, and one of the new that we were using the LED small bulbs to light the mica separately from the light, downward light illuminating the sanctuary, they looked the same. We had not altered the aesthetics at all. We did have to alter some of the internal structure of the light to get all of this in there, but the lights looked the same. And people, in fact, during the transition, when we had some one way and some the other, people couldn't tell the difference. So it's important to pay attention to the aesthetics. And it doesn't cost much. It's just a little bit of ingenuity sometimes to make it work. Don?
And obviously, one of the things you see, and whenever you have like us, two engineers playing around, the way you think about that kind of stuff, it isn't obviously easy in that part that you would go out and find the electrician that could do that. But you may have to be a little creative in some of that. But the answer is you need to pay attention to the aesthetics so that you maintain what your space, what you want it to look like, and not alter it. You don't, let's say it this way. We found out you don't have to. You can maintain the aesthetics and go and be efficient. You may have to do a little bit of out of box thinking, but it is possible. Let's say it that way. And obviously, the last thing we did is, all right, it says now we got those going. And by the way, we're still replacing roofs and stuff like that with more insulation. That's an ongoing thing. We got some more windows that we're doing, but right now we've got most of that done, right? And we're pretty much under control. So the next thing was, okay, our justice team was always getting all over our case. It says, why aren't you guys not going to solar panels? I mean, if I heard that a million times, that was probably a minimum. But anyhow, and it says, why don't we put solar panels all over our roof and become green? Well, I kept telling them, A, it's very expensive to do that. And you're going to see bullet number 3 down there very clearly says why. All of those tax rebates was not eligible to us. And I mean, we're talking fives and $10,000s of dollars of tax rebates that the government was offering the individuals. Well, you as a not-for-profit, you don't get in there. You don't pay taxes. So guess what? You didn't get those solar panels for free anymore, or I should say at a discounted price. You pay the full shot for that. Now, not only that, we have a 75 plus year slate roof on our building. Are you okay? You're going to punch holes through that thing and put solar panels all over it? Come on now. Well, and just to digress for a second, one of the biggest limitations of slate roofs on a building is not the slate. We have Vermont slate. It is the fasteners holding those tiles on the roof is the things that are constantly failing. So now you're going to have some outfit go up there and put some kind of fasteners, dig down through the slate roof and put solar panels on it. And
hey, Don, we've about used up our time. We ought to shorten this up.
I'm done. And so the answer is the best way is to go to a solar farm, let them do the maintenance. You're not interfering with your roof structure. And guess what, guys? They offer, and well, at least they did whenever we was doing that. I'm sure that's changing. It says we're buying our electric from the solar farm for 10% less than we can buy it from RG&E. And guess what? We're back to that same question again. All right. So where's that? Mind you, that other number that I gave you for how many pounds of CO2 we are saving, that was just for electric. Now you get to see just for, I mean, the lighting, excuse me. Now you see it for all of our electric, that you see that we're now at 111,000 pounds of CO2 that we're not putting into the atmosphere. So I guess based on Dave's comments, since I can't see the clock, I guess we're ready to turn this over to Brian.
Yeah, just one other comment, Don, before you leave that. If you go looking for solar farms kind of a thing, the term you look for is community solar. Community solar, there are a number of people selling power out of farms and it's all called community solar.
Yeah, that's the terminology you're looking for.
Thank you.
So-
Thank you. Thank you. Go for it.
Yeah. So Brian is still tied up at work.
Oh,
And I know what that feels like because I was on call. And even though sometimes other people were on call, sometimes things happen that somebody else doesn't know how to handle because they're newer than you are. And you end up having to do it anyway. So the last text I got from Brian, y'all are going to laugh at this. He said, 2 bosses here having a heated argument currently. Pretty funny. So I don't know what's going on at St. John Fisher, but apparently two bosses are having a heated argument and Brian's stuck there. Anyway, so I'm going to just punt for about 5 minutes and then I think we'll just open it up to questions, because why don't you go back to his slide for a second? Going back to that. So these are the things, some of the things Brian has been able to do. And it's not all of the things he's done, but you'll see a lot of it is very, very, very similar to what Dave and Don have just shared with us. We also have a kind of a campus, but it's much, much smaller than Doopsie's. We have our church building, which had an addition put on in the 1950s. So it's, we've got the front part of the church, the sanctuary, all that is, and then we've got rooms behind that with Sunday school rooms and a fellowship hall and a kitchen. And we also have a what we call the Connor House next door. We own that, and one of the ministries that we support operates out of that. It's a tutoring program run jointly with the school and with the church. And we did house another ministry in there for a while. So we do also have basically a small campus compared to what Doopsie has. We have some similar considerations, although again, not as much as Doopsie because we're a smaller church in a small community in a rural county. We do have missions and ministries or other groups that use our buildings in the evening. We have a quilt group that comes in one evening a month. We have Alcoholics Anonymous meets there weekly. We have scout troops that use the building. People can sign up to have a baby shower or this or that in our fellowship hall. So we also have people in and out. And one of the things Brian we've got programmable thermostats and everything is on a program. And we also do have some zones. So the sanctuary and the older part of the church is on one zone, and then the whole addition on the back is another. So those are some things that Brian's done. When I go into, say, Fellowship Hall, because I'm having a meeting there, I can temporarily override the program and turn the heat up. And the thing that gets drilled into us constantly, and there's a sign right there that says, put it back to program, because if you don't, you've just overwritten the program. And they may go back to program after a while, I'm not sure. And so these are very similar things that you'll see that Brian has done over the years. And that my guess is that if he retires or when he retires, this list might get longer really quickly, right? So, timers on all our outdoor lighting, just all sorts of similar things. And one thing we're really lucky with is we do heat via a boiler. And it's, but Brian, because he's an HVAC licensed with all the right stuff, he only will do certain things with the boiler, but we don't have to, he has all those licensing. So we're not constantly paying someone to come in and do that. But I know when it comes to major things, he will have someone who specializes maybe in boilers come in and do it. But so that's kind of a savings for us. I don't know. Can I just screen share myself?
Yep.
Sure.
Do you want me to stop this one, Janet?
Yeah, you stop and let me see. The last time I tried to do this on my thing, it wouldn't. There we go. So I don't know.
Dawn, can you guide her?
There you go. Can you see that?
No.
Can you? Whoops. Can you see that my church's webpage?
No.
No.
Now, I don't know. My Chromebook has been very funny about allowing me to screen share.
Janet,
The
now
last
you
few
know,
times
I'm going to do a quickie. You say screen share, and then you choose what you want to share after you do the screen
I
share.
do. I get this window that says Chrome tab, window, or entire screen.
Oh, no, you have to choose what you're wanting to share. Just
Okay. This comes
click on
up.
what you want to share.
Okay. Is it there?
Nope.
No, this still
No.
didn't come up.
It's not because it's telling me. I get this weird message, but anyway, we'll move on from that. It didn't used to do that, but all of a sudden that's what happens to me when I go to screen share, and it's because I'm on a Chromebook. And it's a Chromebook thing, not a Zoom thing.
Okay.
Anyway, all I was going to do is share our webpage, but I'm just going to read you a couple things from our webpage because obviously our church building was built in 1854. So it's old, obviously. And so it looks
Shall I try to
very
screen share? Shall I try to screen share? Shall I try pull up your website and try to screen share that?
Yeah. Look for Caledonia First Presbyterian Church. It should come up.
Well, I'll see if I can do this.
I don't know why the Chromebook does that to me. It gives me this first message. There we go.
Do you see something? Okay, good.
That's it. That's it. So now you just get a kind of a visual picture. Our sanctuary looks like something from 1854, except for obviously there's new carpeting. The front looks different now. But when I was a kid, the front of the church was darker and arranged differently. But you can see our property. We have quite a bit of property. It's just we don't have a lot of buildings on it because it is a more rural church. Land is and it's also we've owned that land since like the 18. Yeah, you can stop that now.
Okay, sorry.
You're seeing a lot of things, but there is the outside of the church for Christmas time. So that's about all I can share with you. One of the things I was going to mention that Brian had done, I guess I already talked about that, was the boiler. So I'm just going to let Don and Dave answer all your questions because they probably have a lot of good advice for you.
Janet, you brought up a subject that I'll speak to. One of the things whenever we have our computer control, and I just told you that our director of operations and our maintenance tries to schedule all this stuff. That doesn't mean we're perfect at that. In other words, that you don't walk in surprised on occasion and say, oh, I forgot to tell Eileen to give me heat. The little on the side of whatever you want to call it, it's not a thermostat, but it's a thermostat for the computer, if I want to use that language. And there's a little button on the side of it that says, oh, I need to use this space. And it didn't get into the computer. And I'm here on a Sunday or Saturday, and I can't get a hold of maintenance. And you push the button, and ours says, oh, to the computer, this is now occupied space for the next hour and a half is what our default is. So you hit the little button, and it says, oh, you have heat for the next hour and a half.
Huh. Interesting. Good.
Janet, you were commenting about the fact that your building was built in 1858. Unfortunately, the downtown church is now the third incarnation, and we noted that it was built in early 1900s.
Right.
And that was because there was a fire that destroyed the complete complex. So that is the third building on that site.
Yeah, that's actually our second building. Our first building was built in 1806, and that burned down. And so the building we're in now that was built in, well, the core part of the building was in 1854, but same reason, the old one burnt down. So
I'll make one more comment. I'll make one more general comment, and then we'll go right in the question. Just because our complex is bigger doesn't mean, just like Janet said, the approach is basically the same for everybody. And the idea was, where do you get funds? Where do you get support? And yes, you may be refining it at your space, but the basic principles, all of those same targets is practically applicable to any and everybody. So I guess I'm open for question. We are.
Go, Linda.
Linda, it looks like, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Well,
Linda.
I don't have a question, but I am so grateful. I'm at First Press in Ithaca, and before I was even a new member, I got shoehorned into the chair of Building and Properties Committee, about which I know nothing, but I'm very interested and excited about. So this helps me. We've only had one meeting so far with myself as the chair. This helps me look somewhat, a tiny bit competent. Yes, and somebody said, how can Linda, I heard somebody say to Pastor, how can Linda be the chair, voted on to be the chair of Building and Properties if she's not a member yet? Because that wasn't going to be for a couple of weeks. And the pastor said, if the way be clear. And the person goes, I'll tell you, they're clever. So thanks a million. This was fantastic.
Looks like Craig has a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Yes, I'm at Somerville, and there's a committee now that is looking at putting solar panels up. I'm glad you answered the question about the fact that, as I suspected, it would not be covered by the subsidy. But did you have any other comments that you would tend to make, so I can talk to my committee about why putting solar panels did not work out well for you?
Not only that, a friend of mine, another engineer, we look at this, Craig, all the time from a personal point of view. There is no clear long-term cost where that's to your advantage to put them on your roof, if I want to use that, because you go, whenever they go bad, you have to put a new roof on, you have to tear all of those solar panels back off. If you really look at the 50-year or 30-year, it's hard pressed to justify having them on your roof. That just means now if you're out in the middle of Colorado and the mountains and you want to be independent, you're doing that. But if you're looking purely from a money point of view, and mind you, whenever you put all of that stuff on your roof, that isn't the end of it, because you got batteries and all the rest of the electronic stuff that somebody has to maintain. That is my point. And most likely as a church, you're going to have to pay somebody to do that, meaning whether that is on a contract as needed or whatever. Obviously in the farm, it comes through RG&E. You don't care. That's a savings, nothing, no stress on the property team, no stress on the church. And and the other part that, like David says, be careful. There are, even within a solar farm, what I learned personally, there are multiple programs being offered under solar farm that gives you different discounts and stuff. So don't stop at, like David's point, don't stop at the first solar farm. You want to get because they're more numerous now. This is now you can go shopping.
It's like buying a car. So it's like buying a car that
Yeah.
you don't want to buy from the first dealer you talk to.
Craig, there was an interesting article in, and I can't remember whether it was Time or Smithsonian within the last month about the problems that people are running into with rooftop solar. And apparently, a lot of the rooftop solar was finance gimmicks that made it look attractive, but wasn't really necessarily attractive.
Long term.
And so they were encouraging people to look at solar farms, community solar, sorry, not solar farms.
Right.
Thank you very much for that comment. I'm on the dubious side about this, and this is providing information for me to why it would be better to go with purchasing solar. So
And actually, if you're going to a community solar, you're achieving the same CO2 reduction that our Justice Committee was pushing us to get.
Right.
But in addition, you've got somebody else that's taking care of it, and you've got a predictable cost. With rooftop solar, your costs are all over the map. They're not predictable.
That's an
Nancy,
excellent point.
I didn't see whether Steve or Jim had their hand up first. Sorry.
I think Steve did.
Okay, thank you very much. A couple, I think this is interesting about solar and community solar. I assume community solar is all available through the grid, so you could just choose a source for your electric. And
it's like an S code, Steve. You just tell you once you connect it, it goes right on your RG&E bill, and what you now get most of the time, you get two bills, one for when you're paying for the electric, if you will, from the solar, the community stuff, and then RG&E. By the way, RG&E does all the control. They say you're getting this much credit from the community place, and I'm knocking that down, and the other guy bills you for it, and you get the credit right off of your.
And is it specific to nonprofits?
No.
Okay.
Anybody.
So, okay.
Anybody.
Okay, so my first question was about the rigid foam on flat roofs. I assume that rigid foam would be covered with a membrane, the waterproof membrane. Can you then walk on it?
Yes. Now here's Steve. What they do is you put, and then by the way, one more educational piece. Never put one layer on your roof. It's always two layers of foam. You don't want what you want to say where the sheets of foam butt up against each other. That crack, if I want to use it between them, is never zero. So whenever you have a and I'm being technical for a second, whenever you have this real cold weather outside and down here's your nice warm, and you have this little sliver of space between the foam, it goes up and there's a little bit of condensation will form on the underside of that roofing that can sit there and drip down and basically wet the deck of your. So what you want to do is whenever you put the two layers on, they overlap it so those seams never align. And the answer is now. If I'm going to give you two answers, you can walk on that without anything. One of the most important things that they teach if you get into this, and this has nothing due to our energy, but how you attach it. The warranty of that roof is depending on how you put it down. In other words, you can say here, oh, I want to put the roof down, and then I put screws to hold the foam in place, right? But before I put that EDPM roof on top of it, then I want to put whatever you want to call it, a layer of insulate, of padding or whatever you want to. So they put another board on top of the foam, so that way when it because you got screw heads sticking up and stuff. The worst thing you can do on a flat roof then is say somebody's going to put the screws down on the foam and then put the thing. You walk on it, you grind underneath your foot. You're pushing that thin EDPM into the head of that screw. The answer is what they'll tell you is no, you screw it down to save money on the phone, you glue the next layer, the thin layer down, and then you glue the roof down. There's no pressure points. If you have hailstones or walking on the roof, you don't puncture it. By the way, that translates into about a 5 to 10 year warranty coverage difference on that roof, just because of how you put the roof down.
It pays to have somebody who's experienced in doing
Know
this.
what they're doing here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
I guess we're ready to go to Jim.
Okay, Jim.
Morning. Thanks for the information. I want to correct one thing that you said. It may have been, well, let me just correct one thing that you said that may or may not be valuable to the audience. So it is true that tax credits are not available. However, a significant rebate is available. So the rebate is 30%, but only for renewable energy. So if you go from a normal efficiency gas boiler to a high efficiency gas boiler, no money for that. But if you go to solar or geothermal or wind, houses of worship can get a 30%, nonprofits can get a 30% credit back. It's not a credit, it's a rebate. It's cash, a check for cash. So just make sure you understand
The language difference.
yeah, you still can pursue solar if you choose to, and you'll get 30% back in cash for that. Number one.
Jim, thank you for that, because when we did it, that was not available.
Yes, it's new within the last year or two. Correct. Second thing
Tell me what
is
page
that
that's on, would you? Sorry to,
how to find it?
what page is this on our handout? Does anybody know?
It's not in the handout
I didn't put that in there, Linda.
because
I
we
just
weren't
said-
aware of that.
All my comment was that there's no tax refunds, rebates, and Jim's just correcting that says there is some, and I'll let Jim give you the right details.
Yes, probably if you search on NYSERDA's website, start with NYSERDA, NYSERDA.
Right.
I'm sure you'll find it. Second thing is that if you generate your own solar, realize that that's mutually exclusive with having a membership in community solar. You can't have both.
Right.
You can do one or the other. That comes right from the New York State Public Service Commission. So those two things I think everybody should know.
And I didn't even think of that, Jim, because I just took that for granted. I hate to say that, but. Any other questions? Eileen?
Yes, I was wondering, you've done quite a few different types of energy efficiency ideas you've implemented over many years. I don't know if you had to pick one, what would you say had the greatest impact for the church?
The one that we started with, Windows.
Windows, okay.
Because that there's reason, Eileen, the reason I'm answering it that way, it is Windows have two major drawbacks. Most of the old single pane windows, not only the conducted heat going through them was huge, most of them leaked like a sieve. And that's two ways you lose energy through older windows, if I want to use that, because air infiltration is a big deal also. And now, and to add the icing on the cake is the comfort factor. Is whenever you're investing, not only are you helping the energy cause, you're making people tons more comfortable.
Okay.
And it's like I said, a one-time kind of invest. No, it isn't technically, but it's a very long time investment, if I want to use that language.
I just had a follow-up question too, what's next?
What do you mean? What's next? What's the next motion?
Well, it seems like this has been an ongoing process for many years. You guys must have a couple things in your minds coming
Well,
up.
the next most
few
important
years.
thing for us was lighting.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, lighting is, for us, was a major, major piece. The third piece beyond that, of course, is the automatic control of temperature.
Okay.
But Eileen, that lighting is going to become we're still not got every fixture up to LEDs.
Right.
I mean, that is the final thing is
Okay.
to get up so far. And one of the things that we didn't talk about, everybody, was, and I think Janet mentioned it from Brian's point of view, outside lighting. We've also, I just didn't talk about it at all, but outside lighting with LEDs, dusk to dawn kind of things. We have LEDs in the cross on the top of our church. We took, as an example, since this is all just in my back of my head here, we have something like 12 200-watt light bulbs that we had in a cross in the top of our church. And we replaced those all with whatever you want to call it, the corncob like LED bulbs. Significant, again, significant savings just on the cross on the top of the building. I mean, whenever you say lighting, just don't get it into just offices. That's the parking lot. That's on the cross and the roof. You've got lighting all over the place. And the other part of it we did, and just to pick on that one more time, is down and under our catacombs and stuff, we're terrible. We leave lights on, several safety lights. So that's, I guess that would be the way to say it. There's safety lights on all the time in certain places in the organization. Clearly, that is the first place that you put LED lighting is in all that safety stuff, because it doesn't burn out as fast, meaning it's not out because somebody didn't get the bulb replaced, but it's on all the time. And now we do that in certain hallways and stuff like that for safety, because we have security cameras going 24/7 at our sanctuary. And the answer, the hallways, because we have tenants, the answer is it makes us, how do I want to say it? We're better neighbors, if I want to use that, with the cameras. Because if something gets stolen out of a tenant's property or something, we have a camera that said, oh, we didn't see anybody taking that out of your space that wasn't your people. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
it makes us much better neighbors. Let's say that was my point. And we do the same thing in and about now our security stuff needs lights. Now we did not go, if I want to use that language, you can get security cameras that have all the little LEDs, that it can go in infrared in the middle of the night. We didn't quote quite that far. We put the LEDs to leave the parking lot lit all the time for safety reasons. We are downtown and people cut through our space all the time. So it's safety wise, we want the thing lit all the time outside. But now, if you're on urban on church
Suburban.
in the country or whatever, you may not want to do that. You may want to turn the lights off, even with LEDs. And I don't know if Brian did that. With his timers, he may have chose to do that.
I'm not sure he did, but I do know some of them are motion activated too.
Okay, that's the other thing. Yep.
Because I can tell when I stop at church and the light comes on, I went, oh. Just like at my house.
And by the way, one of the things we do even for our security, we're just the same language that Janet said, we're motion activated, so that the camera only keeps recordings when there's motion in that space, so that you don't have, by the way, 40 million feet of looking at an empty parking lot, that whenever you go to look at the security, you get to see when somebody was in there. And it makes, as you can appreciate, that maintenance a lot nicer. I guess, Nancy, you got...
Don, Nancy's trying to get in.
Yeah,
That's all right.
sorry.
No, this is wonderful. I know we're almost at our time. I have two quick questions though. One would be, does anyone else here do something else, or a whole different facet of energy savings and
that we haven't touched on, Nancy, right?
Yeah, I was just curious. Okay. My last question is
Jim
had a comment, I think, there, Nancy.
sorry, go for it.
That's okay. I am investigating geothermal. If anybody is interested, I can share my story if you contact me. It's very expensive capital wise, but the operating cost is extremely low. It doesn't take as much land as you probably think it does. That I have found is not a limitation, but the infrastructure for delivering the heat to your space, if you already have, let's say, steam delivery pipes and condensate return lines in your walls, etc., can't reuse those. So the capital cost is not just drilling the wells, but it is delivering the heat into your space.
Thank you,
Just so
Jim.
that you know, but I have looked into it.
Linda, I guess, and then what, I know Nancy won't forget hers.
Yeah, on that note, we are going to be, our church here in Ithaca is on DeWitt Park. And the church owns that park. But there's an American Baptist church next door and then a courthouse. And the neighbors are going to go together to put in a geothermal, and the city is going to help us with that.
Yes, that,
So and what is the law, Jim, that we have to have it in by 2030? Something, we have to upgrade our,
do you know, Jim, is there a deadline on that?
by
don't know.
2030, that's what I've seen.
You mean for the cashback,
Yeah,
the 30% cashback? I'm not sure when it runs out. I'm on NYSERDA's site, by the way, right now, Linda.
okay.
I haven't found the cashback yet, but if I do, I'll email it to you.
So my
By the
point
way,
is, we have neighbors, close neighbors like the downtown church that want to go together. But offset
Just
some
as a
costs.
sidebar comment, I have thermic heating in my house, and I'm very familiar with that. And I can tell you the ballpark numbers. The COP rating is what they call efficiency rating of thermal systems is just around 3 if you got a good system. And since it's buried, meaning in the ground, you get a very high. In other words, this is not like buying a heat pump that you get it out of the air. Geothermic drives those efficiency numbers significantly higher. So translate that into English is like for my personal use at home, for every kilowatt hour I buy from RG&E, I get 2 free ones out of the water. Wow. Now, like Jim says, that doesn't come free. There is a upfront capital investment, just so you have to balance that what that looks like long term whenever you amortize it, say the next 12 years or something like that. Nancy, you had a comment, another comment?
Oh, just quickly, there have been so many success stories here. Did you folks run into anything that was, you just couldn't get beyond that hurdle of something that you wanted to do other than the funds to do it with? Was there any roadblocks that folks might encounter that were just, oh, well, we're going to have to go a whole nother way? It's kind of broad, sorry.
By the way, I was just going to make a comment while they're thinking, Nancy. To me, to us, Dave and us, this is fun. We're techies. It is very rewarding. It is very rewarding whenever you get into this, where you can make a contribution and reduce the cost. And I hate to say it, be a whatever green hero, whatever. There's all kinds of perks to make an effort in this kind of area. Saving money, saving the planet. What more can you ask for?
Mm-hmm. Very good. Did you? Thank you. Did you not hear my question? Did I not?
You heard it. Yeah, I did.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't know. Yeah. I
It's
mean,
okay.
yeah. She's
Greg,
wondering.
did you have your hand up, Greg?
Oh, no.
Oh.
No, I was just affirming that I had heard what Nancy's question was.
Okay. No big roadblocks then, sounds like, that you guys encountered, Don and Dave.
Just the will to do it and the manpower.
Yeah.
I would encourage anybody who's got a property committee to solicit or encourage every technical person in your congregation to become involved, because so much of this stuff is easier if you have a technical background and you can look at it from an engineering point of view, because so much of the nuts and bolts of doing this is pure and simple, good old-fashioned engineering.
Mm-hmm.
I think Eileen had a question or a statement.
Yes, just to Nancy's question is, I would say not necessarily a challenge, but just something practically to keep in mind that some of these higher tech systems are more complicated to maintain. So it's not like staff can be trained and then that's that. It's like we're constantly relearning, retraining, and needing to bring Don and Dave back in for those. And the people that share our building too, don't always schedule things. So it really takes regular talented attention. I just want to throw that out there too.
That's very, very
And
good
luckily
point.
Dave and Don have been available to continue that process.
Well, that touches based back to the community solar farm versus the panels on your
Exactly.
roof.
That's a good point.
That is what Eileen, that means when you do it on the roof, you're a kind of now responsible for all that techie in your basement kind of thing.
And, I think in my church, we run into that, what you're talking about. I think Brian definitely runs into it. And like I'm a nerdy techie person. I come out of, high-end quality assurance and labs and kind of like Nancy. And what I notice as we move through time, especially when you look at the statistics around churches in general and an aging population, and that can get difficult, is to get people on committees who have the technical ability. I mean, we've got plenty of people in our church who will get on the buildings and grounds committee because they like to plant flowers and they'll come to a cleanup day. But to really dig in and figure out how to use some of the newer technology, they're never going to be interested in that. So it's something to really keep in mind. I think you can still make it work. You just got to know, it's like you said, you got to tap the right people.
So, and I'll bring that full loop to part of my presentation. Those audits, just remember that they have audit programs out there. Don't forget that. That's where those resources are when you don't have the techie people. That's kind of where you get a techie helping you roadmap where you're going. So don't forget those audits, people. That is important. And by the way, these programs are changing. RG&E is changing these programs all the time. So you have to be what I want to call proactive, I guess would be the nice way to say it. Proactive in to say what programs are available. So don't be afraid to call and find out.
In fact, Nancy, that might be something the Presbytery might want to think about doing, is putting together a small core group to look at these programs and provide guidance to the various congregations as to what's available.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think Steve looks like he has a comment or question.
No, I have I'm sorry to ask this question so late, and you probably have, I know you talked about it earlier, no doubt, but you mentioned windows, and I wanted to know what is your best suggestion for method for insulating old stained glass windows? Do you use quilts? Do you use, how do you do it? Do you have a suggestion?
Steve, how they did it on ours before my time, they basically put what I call it, the equivalent of a storm window over to protect it, which then insulated it. And what they did in that scenario, it was like, what do I want to call it, Steve? It's like not a frosted window, but like a pebbled window. It isn't clear glass, in other words. And the idea is to diffuse the light so when it hits the stained glass that you get a nice uniform illumination. Now, if your objective is to be able to see that outside as well as inside, now you may have to rethink that, whether it's clear glass or not. But by the way, there is all kinds of advantages of adding that other layer of glass on the outside. And you'll see them in big stained glass windows, because these parts are all leaded glass and from the expansion and contraction, they start bowing. The falling into the glass does not stay flat. And in the end, whenever you start insulating that, you reduce that, you extend the life, and at the same time, you reduce the energy loss and extend the life of the window itself.
Thank you.
And by the
Thanks,
way,
Greg.
one of the people that we use Pike stained glass. They're very good at advising, not just doing work. That's one of our go-to outfits is Pike glass, stained glass.
I think Jim has something to say again.
Thank
Oh,
you. Two
and-
things. I put a link in the chat to
Yes.
what I was talking about before, the tax they call it a tax rebate or a tax credit, but it's a rebate. And then regarding stained glass windows, so a third, what we've done is as we conserve the windows or rebuild them, clean them, etc., we're putting on low E storms on the outside. We already have storms, but we're switching to low emissivity glass, so it's reflective. The second thing is that you'll learn is drilling holes in the wooden frame around the stained glass on the inside, so you get natural convection to take the heat away from in between the leaded glass and the storm is key, so that the lead doesn't soften and then flow over time and the windows bow.
You
So
don't have the heat buildup between the two.
Yes, yeah, you get actually a little benefit from the heat coming in through the low E glass by taking it into your sanctuary.
And in this case, Jim, the low E is being used to reflect the heat, not absorb the heat.
Correct. It is to protect the window so it doesn't heat up so much. It works very well.
And people don't realize that low EV means the short wavelength of infrared is passed through low EV. Long wavelength infrared is basically reflected. You're talking to a guy that gets into all of that stuff, so
it looks slightly gray from the inside, but
right.
once you put it on the stained glass window, it's hard to tell that you've changed the color at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jim. Oh, you're muted, Nancy. You forgot.
Thank you.
There.
I think we'll close last minute. So thank you. Thanks for everybody for coming. Thank you, Janet, for great job. And Don
yeah.
and Dave, thank you so much. Very, very informative. Keep in mind, this whole Zoom and the PowerPoint information, those will be posted. And you'll subsequently also be getting that survey. So please fill out that survey, responses, ideas, how things went for today. And if you're interested in working with the tools and training group as well, that would be good to that's all in the survey as well. Janet, anything?
Yeah, the recording and the PowerPoints will be shared, but they'll be on the Presbytery website. And it takes sometimes a couple weeks to get them all collected from the different workshops and to get them all in one place so that Lisa can upload them to the website. So, but the whole recording and the PowerPoint will be available on the website, the Presbytery website. So let's say you have a committee and you want the whole committee to see this, you will be able to do that.
Great.
Great.